Welcome to From Stuck to Scaled, Growth Strategies for Small and Mid-Sized Businesses, your guide to navigating growth, transformation, and success in today's ever-changing business landscape. Each week, we'll dive into proven strategies, real-world case studies, and actionable insights designed to help small and mid-sized business owners scale smart, lead stronger, and grow faster. Let's get you unstuck and on the path to sustainable, scalable success. Now your host, Julio Gonzalez.
Welcome back to From Stuck to Scaled, Growth Strategies for Small and Mid-Sized Businesses. I'm your host, Julio Gonzalez, and every week we explore the tools, mindsets, and strategies small business owners need to break through barriers and scale with confidence. Here's a powerful stat to kick us off. Millennials now make up nearly 1 in 3 new entrepreneurs in America. They're driving innovation, ditching traditional career paths, and redefining what business ownership looks like. But starting from scratch, that takes guts. Today's guest is a perfect example. Christian Barrientos is a millennial entrepreneur and podcaster who didn't just start a business, he built it through grit, clarity, and smart decision making. Christian is a young entrepreneur and a somewhat recent graduate from Florida International University. He comes from an entrepreneurial family that runs a logistics business, but he didn't want to ride on his family's coattails, so he started his own company. We're talking about the real behind the scenes, the mindset shifts, the delegation that saves your sanity, and how to grow without selling more than you can deliver. If you've ever felt stuck in the weeds of your business, this episode is your blueprint for climbing out and scaling up. Let's get into it. All right, Christian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Julio. It's great to be on, man. Great to be on.
I'm excited to have you on today to talk about entrepreneurship and mindset. I've already told our listeners a little bit about you, but why don't you give us, your intro and how you became an entrepreneur?
Sure thing. So I guess it all kind of kicked off in the summer of 2019 or 2018. Leading up to that, I was in school and in college and going through the AA and doing all of that and kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And in between that, during that time, I was also doing competitive kickboxing and Muay Thai and boxing. So took a couple matches and was just doing that semi-casually. And went to a tournament and got injured. I got injured pretty severely. Was a knee that was totally legal, but it hit me kind of low in the hip region, and I was messed up for a while. So that kind of put me on my ass for a bit, and I was kind of trying to figure out, okay, well, I liked fighting, that's fun, but definitely not like career path wise. School, I'm kind of balancing between majors. I'm just really not sure what it is I want to do. And I finally decide, okay, well, what if I try maybe starting a business and going that route? And so that was kind of the seed of the entrepreneurial mindset, I guess, that was planted. I do come from a family. My mom's actually an entrepreneur. She's operated a freight forwarding company for going on 30 years. Her dad, my grandpa, is a very successful entrepreneur. He's older now and retired, but he retired very young and did very well for himself. So it's kind of been in the family. But my first endeavor was actually an online directory, which has, in a funny way, going on about 6-7 years now. It's kind of come full circle. But at the time, it was my first venture. Just did not go well at all. I had the seed capital that I blew through, kind of not stupidly, but I was just in a rush to scale with no actual proof of concept, no revenue. It was kind of banking on hitting. So it did not go well, but I kind of stuck the course. I stayed there. And from that, I kind of learned, took my hard knocks there and realized, okay, this is a lot harder than just money out and expecting, this is different. So I stayed the course. From there, I just kind of leaned on some strengths that I had at the time. And with my school background, I was always pretty academically inclined. But in college, I was studying, one of the first things I was studying for was to become an engineer. And I got pretty good at math, nowhere near, high level stuff, but I made it through the calculus. I took, a couple of those higher courses. And so I started tutoring, and that kind of took me through the next few years. And I actually found a lot of success with that. There was especially actually right after COVID and the years to follow there was obviously a huge uptick and need for online tutoring. So I was finding a lot of success, just more than you would think that you could earn as a tutor. I was making really good money, still living with my parents at the time. So I was able to save a lot of that. And after COVID kind of ended and everything went back to normal, that well dried up a little bit. So there again, I had capital, right? I didn't blow through my capital. So I was sitting on capital, but now my revenue stream kind of went down a bit. And I wanted now to figure out how do I create something a little more sustainable, right? So that led me into taking on a role at a marketing agency. So I was cold calling a bunch of marketing agencies. I wanted to kind of get, the reason I went for the marketing agencies in particular, I wanted to practice sales. So I knew I wanted a sales job, but I also wanted to develop skills in marketing and maybe pick things up. So I figured that selling for a marketing agency might give me the best of both worlds. So just cold calling a bunch of them, just seeing if they were open to even internships, anything like that. And finally landed on one. And to this day, that owner is still a mentor of mine, but we've become good friends. And we still work together in other ways. But, I'd spent a couple of years there and just sharpened my skills in terms of networking, sales, learned a lot about marketing. I did a lot of fulfillment for the clients that I did bring on board. So it was kind of a hybrid role. But I got kind of what I wanted out of it. And then that leads us to what I'm doing now. So I basically got what I needed from the marketing agency, good couple of years, learned a ton. And from there, I actually discovered that there was such a thing as public adjusters. And I was introduced to the industry by a former training partner. And he brought me in. Unfortunately, that relationship with that company didn't end the best. And we'll just leave it at that. But I still took everything that I learned from that. And it was a big challenge because basically burned through all of the savings that I had accumulated for all those years. I had kind of burned it getting the business that I was secured on, and that all went away kind of overnight. So rebuilt everything from scratch, this time on my terms, and that's where we are today. I've now been running my own public adjusting firm for 3 years. I've been a public adjuster for 4. So it's been a hell of a ride, but I'm here, and I think it's just been very unique. It's been very, very interesting so far.
Oh, that's awesome. And, you are actually a serial entrepreneur.
Yes.
You went through at least 3 different, businesses that you started, and the ability to flex and adjust is really critical to entrepreneurship. So, I'm glad that you learned that and you've been able to make it work for you. One of the statistics that I threw out in the opening credits is that 1 in 3, businesses started by entrepreneurs is Gen Z. And I had a Gen Z interview a couple of episodes ago, are all around leadership and the differences in managing, a Gen Z staff,
Sure.
being a Gen Z manager. Are you seeing a lot of your friends, your peers, starting businesses like you have?
I would say, yeah, in a sense. I think if I just randomly polled, I would say a vast majority of them, at the very least, have like a side hustle or something that they're working on in conjunction with maybe what they studied to work in. But yeah, definitely, I can see more of the entrepreneurial spirit alive and well, which is very encouraging.
And the recurring thread in that conversation is that your generation doesn't want to get tied down to that corporate job that isn't going to give you the loyalty that existed, back when I started my corporate career.
Absolutely. No, that's very true. It's very true. It's for me that was, yeah. I know that's concerning. For me, it was more of a subtle truth. It wasn't something that really motivated me to say like, oh, well, I know that they're not going to be loyal to me. It was really more for me, like I just wanted to build something of my own, and take for better or for worse, take it to my best ability. And you know how it is. Like you're put in what you put out,
Absolutely.
So if you're not, your business will let you know. You will start to see where you're slacking. It's very revelatory in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of what we wanted to talk about today was mindset. So, tell us a little bit about the mindset and some of the challenges that you had in getting your businesses started, and some of the difficulties.
Yeah. So I would say what I've always run into, at least for me, this is speaking solely for me, is, and you made an interesting point, which I hadn't really thought of it that way, but up until now, I kind of always perceived, even as I reflected on my story to talk about it, I've never really spoken about this publicly. I feel as though that, see what you mentioned as a serial entrepreneur, that ability to kind of pivot and re-strategize, I'd always kind of perceived it as a falling point or a weakness, in that, yes, that is, and it is valid. I also can tend to be a little not disorganized, but chasing multiple rabbits, right? So you chase multiple ones and you won't catch any, right? So that's been a challenge for me just throughout my whole journey, is really just trying to stay focused and directed towards what I had another mentor of mine referred to as revenue generating activities. So kind of prioritizing your daily schedule, weekly schedule, and month to reach monthly goals and all that good stuff. It really comes down to that focus. And yes, I have ventured into multiple businesses. And they've all kind of led into each other. But I think ultimately the focus is a big part of that. When it was the tutoring, that's like, I just leaned on that strength. I wasn't really diversifying or doing anything else really. Money was really good too for what I needed to work. So it was like, milk that. But in every other way, that focus kind of bled in, and like has always, as much as I can be scatterbrained, I try and always redirect and get focused again.
There's a number of failure quotes out there: fail early, fail fast,
Yes.
Fail fast, fail often.
Sure.
We learn from failure. It'd be nice to say, let's have this beautiful experience and learn so much. And it's not that you don't, but you want to really learn it fast. It's on failure. So the fact that, you had your failures, and learn from them, I think is critical, critical learning activities for you. And something that you're going to make sure, the next time doesn't happen, again, at least not in the same way.
For sure.
So failure for me has always been a positive thing. What about mindset? I mean, did you ever find yourself in a dark space thinking, this business isn't cutting it? How did you deal with those types of situations?
Yeah, I've been there a couple times, actually. The most, I would say, poignant was when it all spun out with the firm that I started with. So that was like rock, in terms of just over these past couple of years, that was rock bottom, just in the sense of, just the letdown, the way it all spun out. It was just a rough time. And then deciding, what do I do? Do I still want to do this? Do I really like this? Do I go work for another firm? Do you want, there was just a whole bunch of different questions. And at first, well, I'm taking those in order. So do I still want to do this? Obviously I do. I'm still doing it. And that was the real deciding point. It was like, well, you got into this based off of the idea that you are going to be, in your service, what you're effectively doing is helping people. If you do it with the right intentions and the right approach, you're just helping policyholders recover after a covered loss. pretty simple, and it's advocacy that I like to do. So that was already like immediately, yes, I do want to do this. I feel like I have the skill sets and the sensibility and the personality to handle it. And every claim is different. So it's got a bunch of different things that I never would have expected to want to like to do in insurance and handle insurance claims. But it's kind of got all the things that I kind of like to do. So yes, I wanted to stay and do that. So there's that clarity where you just have to have the honest conversation, and it's easy to just sulk at the bottom when you're so low. Like it can be. For me, it was months. It was maybe what you could say or be diagnosed as depression. Like it could have been that. I never really try not to put too much into it because I feel like that feeds it. But that diagnosis would be probably accurate, right? So it's easy to get stuck there. So I got the clarity of like, okay, well, I do want to continue down this path. Now is a question of, do I go work for another firm? Do my better due diligence? Just make sure it's the right fit this time around. And I did. I was kind of exploring that. I was I got to know another mentor now in this industry. Shout out Vince Perry. He's a great guy. And he's really been a huge help since this transition. And he made an offer, and ultimately I decided, I don't think I can tie up my claims, my commissions with a firm again, no matter how much you like the person or how much, it seems like a good fit. Just the idea that what could happen to me happened and happens. This happens a lot more than you expect.
Yeah.
And so I just couldn't wrap my head around that. And I didn't want to tie it up. So that's when I decided, okay, well, you definitely want to stay in this industry. You definitely don't want to get into another position like you just found yourself in. So the only way forward is to actually stay on the path that you've been on. And that's build a business out of this new strength. Because I developed new skills, right? So out of these skills, build a business. And that's what kind of took me out of it. So in a nutshell, I feel like, mindset wise is buried or it's built on like purpose. You need to figure out, it's kind of a cliche, but your why, everyone says, oh, it's my family, it's my kids, and it can be anything, but that ultimately will get you through those darker times for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Finding your why is critical. We tend to find cliche ways to talk about it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it really is, finding your purpose, finding your why, and sticking to that, to be that thread that keeps you in place. Because if you have that purpose, something that you're working for, you're going to have more of a intention on why you're doing what you're doing. What about, you said something earlier that I wanted to touch on, that you tried to scale one of your earlier businesses, and that didn't work. What was the failure there?
Damn, man. Yeah. So it's so funny to go take a walk down memory lane with this, because it's just so funny. So it was a seed capital of $10,000.
Okay.
What do I do? Within the first month, I rent out a little like sublease of an office space that was probably, I don't know, I can't remember now, but that was probably like $1,000, let's say. And then started doing investing in like marketing services, which was, let's say, another $1,000. And then there might have been some other expenses. So like all said and done, within 3 months, it was kaput. And no actionable revenue plan. Well, not that there was no revenue plan. There had been no revenue. And so it was a lot of back-end development that, again, going back to the revenue generating activities, there's a lot of back-end development that ultimately is important, but there was a lot of things, right? That was like a train wreck in slow motion, but there was a low seed investment, too high overhead, and not enough of a capability to convert that operation and that infrastructure into revenue to sustain even any expenses, right? 10,000 goes like that in business. You can blow that at a seminar. I've seen it.
Yeah. And scaling a startup, is not easy, because you don't have the revenue, you don't have funding, and trying to get into something a little bit too structured is a challenge. So it's important to maintain that flexibility.
Oh yeah.
And be able to pivot. My business is helping companies scale, but that is at that level where they're already structured, they already have revenue. Because as a startup, I treat those differently,
Sure.
because you aren't looking, for the same opportunities to improve, their workflows and efficiencies and so forth.
Yeah.
You're looking for that quick buck
Yeah.
to get to the next transaction. So
Right.
it is very different, when you're getting started and trying to move too quickly. Um, and talk to me a little bit about how you're looking to grow your current business. So kind of continuing down that scaling thread. How are you approaching growth now?
So with this business, in a very real way, it's a lot like my first business, right? So, or my first venture. My first venture was like an online directory, and it was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be for business professionals. And the nature of claims with respect to that is, if you're going to build something that lasts, the revenue is going to be coming in the beginning very sporadically. So you need to be able to manage cash flow and manage whatever investment or seed that you have. You need to be able to manage it very well. So biggest lesson that I took from that first venture, I'm executing right now, and I'm using it, and I'm managing my cash very well. And thankfully we had a really good year, best year last year, and so we're doing great in terms of I guess you'd say like cash on hand, and operations, everything's covered for the next couple of years at current levels, so not scaling. We're good. So I've taken that lesson, and going into scaling now, you also don't want to just, I could just kick back and let the reserves go and then wake up 2-3 years from now and be like, oh, what happened, right? So we're going to scale now, but we're going to scale a little more intelligently. And what that looks like for us, just again, due to the nature of the claims industry, we're really not thought of or known about until something really bad or wrong has happened, right? So with something like that, we're looking a lot into search engine optimization, and it's a new one that's rolled out because of AI. It's I believe it stands for generative engine optimization, GEO. So it's basically just optimizing it for ChatGPT and all stuff like that. So we're looking a lot into that. And again, due to the cyclical nature, I'm actually licensed in Texas as well. So just diversifying, and scaling is a little different. What it looks like, basically, that scaling, and especially in this business, does not look like more money in. It actually looks at how, or if you're going to do it, for me, it's like investing in myself, getting more certifications, getting more credentials to just stand out, and so it's more reinvesting in the professional capability, so that you can be deposed. I've done a deposition now, and been served as an expert witness in that sense. So you kind of slowly build that portfolio of past claims, past depositions, whatever it is, and that's how scaling looks for me. It doesn't necessarily look like throwing $100,000 into marketing.
Sure.
Because you might not see it.
And part of modern day scaling is automation.
Yeah.
It's always been, optimization of the business. So, what things are you looking at from an automation? You already talked about, the generative,
Oh yeah.
Optimization. What else are you looking at AI or just general automation?
Yeah. So with that, we're really streamlining our operations. So with claims, it's no claim is the same,
Right.
but every claim is kind of handled the same. So there's a recipe, so with that, we've kind of written that out and structured it so that one of or basically, he's a partner effectively of the business. He's a like IT wizard. So he's created those workflows and triggers and all this crazy stuff on our CRM, so that click of a button, a movement of a deal into a different stage, whatever happens or whatever activity triggers something, it's happening already. So that's been a huge help. And it literally could be as simple as that, because I think the trick with these things is like less is more. in certain ways. So we actually initially, I was like, oh, I want to automate this, and when you do this, let's make this trigger, and then you see it in practice. It's like, oh wait, no, you can't autopilot it for us. Maybe it's for different things. If you're a widget company, yes, you can autopilot, but for us, service-based industries, you want to automate and optimize the repetitive, low-skill tasks. Anything that needs a little further input or review, you don't want to autopilot because you're going to have to edit it anyway. So we figured that out as well. And so we found this nice balance of structure where whatever needs to be done on a very repetitive basis, it's happening, or it's initiated on the automated side, So that's been great. Just that has been awesome.
And a significant differentiator has become the human touch.
Yeah.
There is so much automation.
Yeah.
So how do you stand out? Well, when you call me, you're not just going to get some, AI answering the phone. You're going to get me.
Yes.
So that really is, it's funny because people are starting to turn against technology. I'm hearing about a lot of new phones that are single function.
Like dumb phones, I think they call them.
Yeah. Basically going down to, an old original, Nokia type of phone. Because, if you
bring back the brick.
Bring back the brick.
That'd be cool, man. Bring it back.
Go retro.
Yeah.
But yeah, people are trying to cut out all of the noise from such a connected world, because it's a distraction. It really is a distraction. So yeah, I'm glad that you're looking at just focusing on those repetitive tasks. Given your business is not a repeating business, it's not like I become your customer for life. I become your customer because I have a loss, and I need your help. How do you focus on customer retention and customer satisfaction?
So the retention side is something we've been really exploring this year as well. And that has required a little bit more creativity because, like you said, it's a one and done. It should be a one and done. And actually, a lot of my clients, jokingly, I say, I hope I never see you again. Because if you need to see me, something has gone wrong, right? Yeah. So, and I build a great relationship with my clients, and I stay in touch with almost all of them. So that's how you kind of, on our side, retain clients. It's more just about keeping in touch because it's a referral base. A lot of my business comes from referrals. So those light touches, nothing like, super salesy or anything. It's me. It is automated in that I'm pre-scheduling it, but it's me, so they're still hearing from me. So that's one. But in terms of creating a recurring revenue model for this type of business, we've been getting a little bit creative, and there's a couple of different things we're working on. One that is actually ready and should be, whenever this comes out, should be on our website and can be found and purchased is claim guides. So basically, a lot of things, and that comes from a very common objection that we run into, which I totally get, is, a lot of policyholders, especially in the beginning of their claim, before the insurance company has even come out and made any payment or coverage determination, a lot of them don't want to surrender a percentage or a contingency fee without that first look, which I totally get. And notwithstanding that, there is a case that is to be made to have representation from the beginning, whole different topic, but I can respect the sentiment. And so this is an option for those people that either want to do it themselves, they don't want to pay a contingency fee, whatever it is. It's basically the entire claim from our perspective and how to manage it, what we would do anyway for them. We're basically handing it to them for a price. So you just pay that one time and it's yours. And you can, hopefully you never have to file a claim again, but theoretically you can handle your own claims. And that kind of, we haven't launched yet, so I don't have any numbers to say we're killing it with that, but I think that would be a creative way for us to make it so that, we're able to dive into that segment of the audience that may never hire representation because they don't want to pay the fee, so that is one way. We have a couple of different others that I won't disclose just yet because we're still in development, but just as an example, digital products is one that we're looking at.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
How long have you been in your business again? It's for almost 4 years.
Yeah, I've been a licensed adjuster for 4 years, and our business we're now finishing or in our third year.
So your business just by nature has evolved. What has your outlook been on your business over the years, and what is your definition today for success?
Man, great question. Great question. So when I first got introduced to the insurance industry and public adjusting, it was a very simplistic approach. And the culture at that firm was actually, you know, sales acquisition is greater than customer satisfaction. So it was kind of reversed on its head as to what I personally, how I operate. But that was their model, and they had a lot of claims. They were working the model, and that was kind of it. It was just very straightforward. You're just adjusting claims. After that all happened, and I got through that, started breaking out to my own, started getting more certifications, and really not just being concerned about signing claims, but like, what is a public adjuster? Like, what is a good public adjuster? Because tell you, it's pretty easy to get the license. So just the license, similar to real estate agents, like the license, just having the license doesn't mean you're qualified per se. So I started to think, what does that look like? What is it like? How do I become competent? And like, how can I really be of value and not just a paper pusher that, is going to take 10, 20% of your claim just by virtue of being on it early enough? How do I distinguish myself in that way? So I started looking at that, and, that broadened my horizons in terms of outlook, where I kind of started wanting to pivot. And we did this very successfully last year after these recent two storms. It was Hurricane Helene and Milton, which were impacting the West Coast of Florida. We basically did, instead of claims adjusting, we had a very successful run at estimating for public adjusting firms. And so the money isn't the same. We make a lot more working the claims just due to the breakdown, right? But we made a good run of that. And it was experience. I got to, in addition to all the claims that I've worked and I've estimated, I was basically in front of a surplus of 250 different inspections. 4 or 5 of those were large commercial claim losses. One of them, it literally was like a 5-6 person team that we were on scoping a 4-floor apartment complex, did a bunch of units. I did another one solo it was kind of like a dual commercial on the bottom, residential units on the top. So just the experience, these are claims that I would not have been able to touch because these guys that were getting these claims, they're, been in it longer. They're based out of that area, so it was just a great experience. So in terms of broadening horizons, I've realized that, my firm, how I want to position my firm is public adjusting, the claims side, the claims division is just one vertical, so we also offer, and we've rolled this out now, we offer estimating services, whether it's on site where we're going to go do our photos, do our sketch, write to an estimate, put together an expert report and give that back for other public adjusters or attorneys, whatever that is, we can do that. Or we can just write the estimate. If they send us pictures and send us documentation, we can write the estimate for them. And then there might be some tweaks that need to be done, but we do that remotely. So we rolled that out and we're building relationships. Again, it's kind of a thing of when it all hits the fan, that's when they need us. So it still hasn't solved the problem. It's a great idea and we found success with it, but it doesn't solve the problem of the recurring revenue. So where my horizons are now is two-pronged, is how do I branch out and be more than a public adjuster and what we would in the industry call like a loss consultant or expert witness? How do I position myself like that? And how do I create this so that, a storm could happen and that's going to flood every division, but I don't want to be dependent on that. I want to be able to say, well, it's dead season, but we're still bringing in X amount from this. You wouldn't even figure it, but it's 1999 and we're getting 1,000 people buying that every couple months, whatever it is. So those kind of where I'm taking it. I'm trying not to be dependent on storms. I do not want to be a storm chaser. It was what, again, they're called. Call them storm chasers. Yeah,
had a conversation earlier today with somebody talking about ambulance chasers.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, there's no shortage of them.
So, if you were to do this all over again in your next venture, because you're going to be so successful, you're going to hire a CEO to run all of this for you. What does that next venture look like?
So the next phase, I think that, at that exit level that you're referring to, hopefully we reach there. At that stage, I think I'll have been in a position where there may be a business I want to start, but I think at that point it's probably going to be real estate investing, and I'll just be doing something like that. I've always liked because of the construction experience now that I've gotten. I like the idea of maybe fix and flips or fix and holds. I don't know what you call that, but just still being involved with construction, maybe being a little more hands-on on that side. I'm also a musician. I've been a drummer for, what are we in? I've been a drummer for 13 years. So I think if I had my businesses running and operating on full steam, I might tip my hat back into the creative and try and make it as a drummer, man. It's never too late. I see Toto, they're still playing. Their age is just a number in music, man. So I think for where I'm at, I never let that die, and I still try and play music. I play every Sunday at my church, so that's a big part that I don't talk about nearly as much, and I don't promote just because of time. But if I could say, hey, businesses are running, I got a CEO for each one and they're doing it, it's going to be real estate as like my day job, and then try and gig, just try and play some music, man. It's a tour.
And I've forgotten to ask you about your podcast. Is your podcast music related?
No, it's similar to this one in that, I'm just trying to interview, people that I see and that are, successful and really doing it like in the trenches, and it could be, and I'm hoping to have a professional jet ski racer, for example, on that. And just, I want to ask her about how I've known her for a couple of years. So I recently saw her break into it, and she's won a couple of championships, and, so there's a mindset. And so hopefully in that podcast, each guest is going to bring some golden nuggets. You're more than welcome to jump on. We've talked about that and kind of pick apart, what makes someone great. We call it That Great Podcast, right? So what are the elements of greatness that are spread throughout every genre, every industry? There's common truths that I want to try and pick too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Christian, no one leaves the show without providing our listeners with a couple of great actionable tasks they can implement today. So what do you have for our listeners?
So I would say on the entrepreneurial side, as soon as possible, because you want to make sure that you have the cash flow to do this and finances are in order. But as soon as possible and feasible, you want to delegate those repetitive, low skill tasks that you may be doing. Yes, you're going to be spending some money on it, but if you do it right and you're delegating correctly, you're freeing up time for yourself anyway. And ultimately, whatever you're paying hourly is going to be a fraction of what your hourly is worth.
Absolutely.
So think of it more like that, right? So don't be afraid to spend. Don't spend it all. So that would be the first one. The second one would be build out those operations in the slow seasons. I have plenty of those here and there, so that's your opportunity to build out operations, do the back end stuff then. And when things pick back up, you can scale and push a little faster because you have that built in. You don't want to sign more. You don't want to have more customers than you can actually handle. As much as that sounds like a good thing, it can possibly sink you. So careful with that. Those would be my two.
Great tips. And there you have it. Real talk from a real entrepreneur who's proving you don't need a trust fund, decades of experience, or a flashy title to build something meaningful. Christian Barrientos reminds us that the business growth isn't about luck. It's about intention, consistency, and knowing when to get out of your own way. Whether it's delegating the small stuff, holding back on sales until your operations are ready, or keeping customer satisfaction front and center, Christian's journey is full of lessons every small business owner can apply today. Christian, thank you again for showing us what's possible when you mix mindset, discipline, and drive to create your own lane. If today's episode resonated with you, be sure to follow, share, and leave a review. And as always, if you're feeling stuck, we're here to help you scale. Take care.
You've been listening to From Stuck to Scaled, Growth Strategies for Small and Mid-Sized Businesses, produced by Optocution LLC. For more information, tools, and resources, check out our website www.redefinepossible.co/podcast.